And although I'm picking up more and more newer records, I still get recommended a lot of classics. With that being said, I've probably listened to over 100 and something albums this year. So last year when I did this, I did a top 25 ranking of all the albums that I did across every genre throughout every year. The list was hard to make, and I was not looking forward to it this year. And it was once again very difficult to make. Last video we covered my top 25 songs that I heard this year. If you didn't see that one, go check that out. All right, or watch this one first and then go check that one out after. You do you. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, feel free to like and subscribe if you want to see more of these lists or any other albums within a review format. Let me know, or anything in general, just tell me. This list is entirely subjective, so if you happen to disagree with anything off of here, all right, and you want to leave a little hate comment, leave a little disagreement down below, I hope truly that you slip on a banana and fall face first into dog shit. I'm gonna get into some quick honorable mentions and then hop into the real list. Honorable mentions, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any of the honorable mentions that I just listed, I actually would maybe call those better records than Replica, but I just want to talk about Replica. I have a strong interest in this record regardless of its overall quality. The use of samples that sound kind of corrupted being on constant loop in a very haunting atmosphere. I was never really too interested in sound collage before this. I've always been interested in samples my whole life, but I never really heard anything be used like this before. And despite a lot of the tracks being so chaotic, I do find a lot of peace and honestly sleep-worthy songs in Andro and Submersible. The album definitely leaves a feeling of emptiness inside. It's definitely for the people that like to romanticize their melancholic feelings. A lot of moments on songs like Power of Persuasion and Sleep Dealer that make you feel as if you have like something on the tip of your tongue, or you're trying to like remember a certain detail about a specific something, and you can't just, you're just right there, but you can't really get to it. Just the constant loop and the constant thought repetition of not really getting to where you want to go. That's kind of what this album is. Besides the Paul George edits, I love this record. It's crazy going into this record not knowing anything about Erykah Badu and who she is and who her story is, and then each track we're kind of given more of a piece of who she is, and we're kind of just putting it together. She kind of lays it out on the table. And of course I love the themes of spirituality and self-love. Orange Moon definitely being my favorite. I could just light a fucking candle to that shit and just zone out. And I can't forget about the bass lines throughout this whole entire record. They're crazy. All right, if you haven't heard it, please. For an album that came out so long ago, it's so rare to find a lot of infusing genres coming together in one fucking explosion. The guitar solo on the first song alone is worthy of it being on this list. Till this day, I don't think I've heard a better guitar solo since I listened to that record. I love the political themes of this record and how a lot of the songs off of here get pretty dark but still manage to maintain that like upbeat funk groove. This shit is really something. I was worried as fuck going into this record because of its runtime, and I just didn't really want, the same kind of alternative and punk rock sound to go on for the whole record. But this band truly has no limit. They have no genre that they can't fucking dip their toes in the pool into. I love his tone and his attitude on every single song off of here. Really hard to pick favorites. I just talked about how much I love Train in Vain in my last video. I mainly just love how this album continued to surprise me more and more as I kept listening to it. This album combines so many influences from hip-hop, electronic music, rock, pop, everything. This album really does have it all. It covers all the bases. I like how this album covers some grim topics sometimes, but still maintains that bubbly dance feeling. The amount of earworms that this album has is ridiculous. I just talked about how much I love Dare. Feel Good Inc. obviously has billions of streams for a fucking reason. That MF Doom feature knocked me on my fucking ass when I heard that shit, bro. It was hard for me to pick a favorite Led Zeppelin album, although I still haven't got to Physical Graffiti yet, and I do like a lot of the songs on track 1 more than this, but there's no denying that the musicians on this record are at their fucking peak. Everyone is fucking killing it. Obviously, I'll gotta talk about Stairway to Heaven, but there was a lot of songs off of this that I didn't even listen to before. Four Sticks, When the Levee Breaks, Going to California, and I just named half the album. You know, it's crazy. And the album really drives the imagination, driving into a lot of mythical topics as well. So many people call this like the greatest rock album of all time that I might get criticized for putting this at 20. I really don't give a fuck though. I love being unsettled. I love purposely putting myself in an unsettling atmosphere. Beth's vocals are fucking crazy. They're ridiculous on song after song. I don't know how she manages to be so light on some of these heavy ass instrumentals. My personal favorite songs being The Hunter, The Rip, Machine Gun. I fucking love Machine Gun. I think my biggest surprise from this record was hearing it actually go a little bit industrial at times. I was expecting the kind of similar trip hop sort of thing, and we did get a lot of those aspects. This album made me really feel like I was in a thriller, being like chased around on the street the whole time. I loved it. The way these guys play off of each other, song by song, I've never seen this before. Every time I re-listen to this record and dive into a song on here, I find more value in it. Every arrangement is beautiful. When you read the translations, alright, because I don't know that shit. When you read the translations, you really feel that. Milton's voice saved my fucking life. It sounds like I'm like just dead on the ground. Like I'm on my last few breaths, and his voice is just calling out to me from God. I came into this channel not really having much patience and just not really liking the whole long song deal and shit like that. This album is like an hour and 20 minutes with like 4 different like acts, I guess. You can call it one song, I don't know. And it starts off so slow, but you know just by the way it starts that it's gonna go somewhere crazy. Your expectations for this album progressively grow as the song is kind of ramping up very slowly. You're saying, hey, if it's taking this fucking long, then the peak has to be good. And the peak is wild. Alright, this is such a good listen. Alright, it's super meditative. You can really sit down, just jot some thoughts down, listen to this, feel like you're going on a mental journey. Yeah, it's definitely not like a casual listen. There's a lot of songs off of records that I just listed, off of records that I didn't make the list, that I return to more frequently. This is just kind of a special occasion album for me. I love it. That's why I got it here. Putting an album this high up on the list is not a hot take. Alright, it's an investment. It's an investment for the future of the record. Some of my favorite pop production to exist. Alright, I don't know how mad at me. So many bangers, Image, Cry For Me, That's My Floor. Turning heartbreak into sort of reinventing yourself. It's his fucking songwriting. It's his songwriting, it's the production. I was concerned going into this because I heard that, you know, this was made in a more of a professional setting where a lot of the songs weren't going to be as rough around the edges. Everything was going to be more kind of clean and polished, but it didn't deter me away from this album at all. I think it's a little top heavy, but when you minus that factor, all the songs are still incredible. It has some of his darkest moments, but also his most uplifting moments instrumentally as well. Sweet Adeline, Waltz 2, Miss Misery being my favorite songs. I'll never forget the first time I heard Sweet Adeline. That shit blew me the fuck away. I was not expecting that energy to go that high immediately, just automatically crazy. It's between this one or Either Or for being my favorite record. And yeah, his vocals still to this day were and always, alright, a warm hug. Just a warm hug, a cup of hot chocolate. This album is a 10. It's weird scoring stuff. And I've never been the type to score albums because there's some albums above this that has some flaws to it that I would say maybe stop it from being a hypothetical 10 out of 10. But this record here, there's not a single fucking song on here that doesn't match and at least associate to a certain setting in Minecraft perfectly. Everything in here is fucking down to a T. The game, almost to a point where all my favorite tracks just blend into each other, blend into one experience where I can't even have a proper favorite track off of here. I guess Mice on Venus would be mine, but everything on here is fantastic. Everything is just fucking fantastic, and every time I listen, it makes me want to play some fucking Minecraft. It makes me want to pick up the pickaxe again, you know what I'm saying? Every song hits Every song hits. Obviously, Enjoy the Silence is a song that kind of got the biggest boost, and it is my favorite, but there's so many fucking underrated ones off of here. I love the danceability of this album while also being a little bit tragic and moody. It just makes you want to put on some sunglasses and do some drugs. Just a little bit of drugs, you know? But yeah, the influence that this record has cannot be overstated. I mean, ever since I listened to this record, every album that I've listened to that has come out since, I noticed kind of pulled maybe something from it. A lot of inspiration you can gather from this record. I think it's close to perfect. One of the records that reading about who Danny Brown was during this time period, what he was going through, the sacrifices that he made, almost going bankrupt for this album's creation, makes me enjoy it so much more. His delivery on this record might be my favorite in any hip-hop album, maybe ever. It's probably the one that I like the most that I've reviewed on this channel. And you can't talk about this record without talking about Ain't It Funny. Probably one of my favorite music videos of all time. One of the greatest and most outlandish, out of pocket hip-hop instrumentals I've ever heard in my life. Just Google Ain't It Funny instrumental. I mean, looking back on it now, I'm kind of sad that I didn't put it in my top 25 songs looking back on it. Maybe I should have. But yeah, I don't recommend this album for people that don't really have, an open mind to some shit like this. It's definitely not for everyone, but I think hearing about his honesty, about his many, many additions is something that should be heard and understood. I'm glad he's in a better place now, but man, this shit was fucking fantastic. Let me start by saying my ass enjoys Jenny Death more than the average individual. Both halves of these albums have songs that just blow me the fuck away. Jenny Death, Up My Sleeves, Billy Not Ready, Black Quarterback, Have a Sad Come. Alright, and then there's B-side, you got Centuries of Damn, top 3 Death Grip song for me. Alright, and also the fan favorite on GP. Production on this album goes absolutely everywhere. It's got some of the most accessible songs, some of the least accessible songs on the production front. MC Ride goes all over the fucking place with his tone. The album still puzzles me to this day. There's still some lyrics I listen to and I'm like, with a double album, you have so many songs. There's bound to be some moments where you're just kind of like, towards, but still the highs on this record, if you combine it, shorten it down, cut it down to their peak moments, it's really crazy. I strive to have as much fucking creativity as this dude did. Probably my favorite production from any album on the list, period. If this album was a planet instrumentally, I need a spaceship. Alright, get me the fuck up out of here. I gotta go to that place. So many different atmospheres kind of colliding like a supernova, colliding like, the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy in a couple billion years. That's what this album makes me feel like. You got tracks that make me feel like I'm fighting crime, and other songs that make me feel like I'm in a futuristic Zoom meeting. I got recommended this video, I'll never forget. I got recommended this video, after my second review on this channel. And I was like, it's a little niche, a little too unknown, I'm not going to cover it yet. And it fell off my fucking radar, and that was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. It takes ambient pop into a more of a futuristic direction. There's not one song off of this album that doesn't achieve the feeling of relaxation and just bliss in my mind. They go a 10 for 10 on here, absolutely. Beth's vocals, whenever they come in on the record, are perfect. I love how they do the kind of robotic format shifting as well sometimes on here, on the first track, and the final synth kind of leading us out of the album, the final segue out of the record is perfect. Such a great way to close this album out. This is probably the one record on the list that maybe a lot of people have not checked out so far, so please, for the love of Christ, listen to this album. Next, I got Purple Rain by Prince. This is probably the biggest album on this list, meaning, how they have like the Marvel universe and the DC universe. This is kind of like the Prince universe, the PU. PU doesn't really come off the top. My last video, I just absolutely praised the fuck out of Purple Rain, so I'm not gonna say much here. Obviously, that song is spectacular. The fucking bassless When Doves Cry. Bassless. Where's the bass? Banger opener. Every time I start this album off and I hear the Dearly Beloved, it gets to me. It just gets to me. I'm just put in the fucking zone instantly. Prince's genre bending and infusions are insane on this. I mean, he was just such a talented individual. This album is insane. Alright, I haven't seen the movie. I heard it's ass. After I listened to this record, which first listen was sort of tough, but I even knew at the end of the video, I'm like, this might grow on me. And it did. And in my ranking, it showed. And now in this ranking, it's showing again. I can't believe how fucking good Light My Fire is. Jim Morrison's personality is just honestly something that I look up to. He's honestly a role model to me. He shouldn't be. So I gotta talk about Ray's organ. I mean, his organ on this record is fucking great. I love all the dark atmospheres and lyrics being portrayed on here. Songs like End of the Night and Crystal Ship really just slip me into a fucking oblivion. And there's still parts of this record that I question lyrically till this day. I just can't help but get curious about different things every time I listen to this album. Let me tell you something about Shinji, man. Let me tell you something about Shinji, dude. He's like my spirit guide throughout this record, just kind of guiding me along throughout this journey that contains some of the most beautiful sounds I've heard in my entire life off of any album. It's just so insanely chill from start to finish. I love Daydream, even though Daydream is so depressing to me, but it's awesome. And I love the groove of Weather Report, Walking in the Rhythm. The record is just truly limitless in my opinion. I can't get enough of it. I love this record. The main premise being each of the members going, hey, fuck you, I'm gonna do this. And then the other member responds by going, you know what, fuck you, I'm gonna do this. Alright, you make that, I'm gonna make this. And we'll see what happens. And then everyone listened to the album was like, holy shit, everything is good. It's so fucking all over the place. Learning the backstory about a lot of the beef that was going on between Ringo and all of them really makes me want to dive into this album more. Really makes me feel alive within this record. Hearing each of them have their own songs, even Ringo for a couple of them, like the last song and Don't Pass Me By, it's a nice hearing him get some shit in there. And it feels to me almost that Paul and John are almost kind of going back and forth in a boxing match to see who can get the most songs, the most bangers on the bracket. I will say though that, maybe sometimes George comes a little short on this record, but hey, it don't matter. He still did While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which is one of my favorite Beatles songs. And I just love how each of them dived into some really experimental territory. It's crazy hearing Helter Skelter and being like, wait a minute, that's Paul. Or hearing Revolution 9 and being like, hey, why did he do that? It's crazy, you're the biggest band in the world and they just don't really give a fuck. Them not really giving a fuck and staying true to themselves and doing whatever the fuck they want to do anyways almost works in their favor. It's like they can do no wrong. This man is clueless. He's clueless. The album does things that no other album has ever done. The seamless transitions on this record are the best transitions on any record, period. I'll fight anyone over that opinion. The way topics flow into each other so well. I mean, this album moves like water. I remember seeing this album years ago in the top 500 albums of all time by that Rolling Stone magazine, and it was number 1, and I was always interested to check it out, and he really dissects and does not leave anything on the table when it comes to these social issues. He really just clears everything up. Not to mention the fact that the instrumentation on every track is perfect. He has some really fucking talented musicians on here. I don't know. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. We all know the story. David Bowie on his deathbed said, fuck you, I'm finna talk about your ass. I mean, just what a fucking goodbye this record is. It's really just a lot of artists that go out in their old age most likely go out with their last record not really being anything compared to what they were in their prime. David Bowie cannot be that same fucking person. Dropping one of his best records up until the day he died proved to me that this motherfucker is one of the greatest artists ever. Everything on here is out of this world and devastating. He portrays it so well on tracks like Lazarus, the saxophone, the haunting and spiraling out of control crazy title track, Tis a Pity She Was a Whore, which has my favorite grum groove. What? And of course the harmonica on the final track, closing track. I love that part. This is another album that's perfect to me. It's hard to tell someone listening to this record that the lyrics don't matter, because based off of how much of an emotional punch that there is from this record, you would think that they must have to. And regardless of still knowing in your mind that there's nothing really behind those lyrics, you still scrabble to find something because you think that there's no way. With a sound that's this lush and beautiful, there is no fucking way that these lyrics are just meant to kind of spark the imagination. I've never heard a lyricist gatekeep lyrics before. I've never heard a lyricist gatekeep their own meanings to their songs songs before, but she really did it. And she's like, you know what? I know I'm keeping my secrets from you here, but you know what? At least you got this crazy instrumental. This album has the best first maybe 10 seconds of any record of all time. I'll argue that. Cherry Colored Funk is a fucking banger. Falsy Politic, Pitch the Baby, 50/50, Clown. Other songs that I love. Favorite song being the title track though. Alright, the way that song starts and the way it progresses is something, and I know I just talked about it last video, but I just can't stop. The record is known as the pinnacle of dream pop for a fucking reason. Alright, people on radio music overrate it for a fucking reason. Alright, it deserves all the fucking praise. I didn't know that you could get gut-wrenching in the 60s. I don't know that motherfuckers were like that. This album turned me on my ass and spanked me. Nothing about pop music and anything about music today would exist if it wasn't for this record. I hate being the motherfucker to give everything points just because it did it first, but this album didn't just do it first. There's a lot of records today that don't do it better than this. There's not many men that have gotten vulnerable on a pop record since Brian on this. And who would? I mean, it's kind of like him sort of confessing that he's weak, and you know, love kind of overpowers him in a lot of different ways. Ultimately, ending with Caroline No, which throws a whole wrench in his fantasy that he had on Wouldn't It Be Nice. There's some videos out there of him doing his own vocal layering on this. You should go check it out. I don't know how the fuck he was doing that all the way back then with that sort of technology. I don't know how he did it. His ass can see. Alright, his ass can see. He definitely can, because there's no fucking way. I finished the first disc, and it changed my life. And then I was looking at the second disc. I saw Isn't She Lovely? I was like, okay, well, after that song, it must be downhill. Nope. Joy Inside My Tears. One of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my life. Talking about dynamics and relationships, positively and negatively. Whether he's talking about a fantastic relationship on Joy Inside My Tears, or a relationship kind of going through up and downs on Summer Soft, or just getting completely fucked over and your heart ripped out of you on Ordinary Love. Ordinary Pain. Sorry. This album sums up the human experience perfectly, thankfully focusing more on its ups rather than its downs, but I do like how we get a little bit of everything off of here. Stevie's so fucking talented, and I'm honestly in disbelief at most of the sounds I hear off of this record, just in plain disbelief. Thank you for another year. Obviously, there's gonna be more videos between now and the New Year's. I just wanna, this is the end of, I guess, the Smags year. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to, alright? Do your little thing, and that's it.